Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, life coach Myrna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Doctor Amani Ballour. Dr. Balor and I are going to be talking on the topic, understanding the plight of women and children in war zones. Welcome, Dr. Balor.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. All right, so let me give you guys a brief introduction to Dr. Balor and our topic today. Dr. Amani Ballour is a renowned Syrian pediatrician and human rights activist. She's best known for her work during the Syrian civil war, where she managed an underground hospital known as the Cave in eastern Ghouta. Her leadership and dedication during this time were the subject of an Oscar-nominated documentary titled The Cave, released in 2019. Dr. Balor was awarded the Council of Europe's Human Rights Prize in 2020 for her humanitarian work. Her experience from running an underground hospital during the Syrian conflict to facing chemical attacks and her eventual displacement underscored the critical issues faced by civilians in war zones, particularly women and children. These crises are not only unthinkable, but they're happening right now in Ukraine. They're happening in Israel and Gaza. And 12 years after the fighting began, they're still happening in Syria. Dr. Balor's story highlights the urgent need for global awareness and action. And you know what? I am so honored to be talking to you, Dr. Balor, and to be highlighting and bringing global awareness to this issue. So I want to start off by talking about what it's like running a children's hospital during the war. And I'm assuming the word cave means that it's underground and you're hearing the shelling and the war on top. That I can't think of anything more stressful as a doctor, as a mom. So can you share what that experience was like?
Well, it's very hard to be always underground, to make a hospital underground, to work with children in a war zone, like bombing, chilling, starving. Everything was difficult. It wasn't only children hospital, it was a hospital for everyone, but I was working mostly with the children in a clinic, and also a lot of casualties after bombing were children. So it's very hard to see children are being, hurt and crying, hungry. I remember many children, it's very hard to forget them. When I ask a child about their pain, especially the casualties, the wounded children, they said they forgot, sometimes their wounds, the blood, they forget everything, and they said, I'm hungry, do you have something to eat? We were in besieged area, we had like very limited resources, very, some food not enough for, we were nearly 500,000 people and more than 100,000 child. So everything was difficult for these children. I remember when I hear the bombing, the fear in that children's eyes. I remember everything about them, the children who had cancer, especially, and we have nothing for them, no chemical therapy, nothing. I mean, in besieged area, in underground hospital, it doesn't supposed to be a hospital. It just was like a basement underground, but because hospitals were targets for the bombing, we moved underground to just protect the health workers, the medical devices and the patients. So we started working in that place. It's dark. It's unhealthy for everyone, not only for children. But yeah, that was the only place that we can work in, and we received children all the time there. We sometimes, try to be kind with the children, try to help them as we can as possible. But it was very hard because we don't have enough medicine, don't have enough medical supplies, medical devices. Sometimes we don't have the diagnostic tools to know what the children are suffering from. So yeah, working with children is the most I mean, there's no words to describe this.
Yeah, I know. I know. There's no words to describe it. Yes, because you don't want to see children suffer and, asking for food and wow. Um, so how long did this continue for? I mean, we're saying now that the bombing is still going on for 12 years. So how long were you in this underground cave with the children?
Well, this hospital started in 2012, and I started working at it, and we left the area in 2018, so nearly 6 years or a little less. And I managed this hospital for 2 years. I became the manager between 2016 till 2018 when we left.
Wow. Wow. So, did most of the kids survive or what was the outcome of the hospital?
I can say, I mean, most of them didn't survive because many victims from the kids I remember, especially when the chemical attack happened in 2013. It was like very big attack by sarin gas. The Syrian regime targeted two cities from the area, and I remember like nearly maybe 10,000 people who inhaled the poisonous gas and who died. Nearly, we can't say the correct number, but nearly 1,500 or 1,400, we don't know. I mean, no one can know. But I remember many children were between the victims. I remember seeing the children were suffocating, and they quickly died because it's like sarin gas. It's something that they can't deal with. And we were only few doctors, some volunteers. We tried to do our best, but we don't have enough medicine. We don't have oxygen for them. And they were a lot of people are suffocating at the same time. So we don't have enough staff to work with them. So we tried to help. We helped only some people, but many died that night.
Wow. Wow. This is, we can never really understand what it's like to be living under these conditions. You've got to, it's one of the things that, you can just imagine the horror, but until you've been in a situation like that, you really cannot really comprehend it, like you had to witness all that. And yeah, well, some people like yourselves are born to be the activists or born to bring about change and your work is being recognized. So, being on shows like this and talking about this and bringing it to the awareness of, global consciousness. Yeah, that is very sad. So I'm glad that someone recognized your work and there was a documentary in 2019, showcasing this and um, uh, did that help as far as getting medicine and supplies and things like that? How did that Oscar nominated documentary help the cause?
Yeah, it was very necessary to us to show the world outside, to show everyone what happens here, especially when the Syrian regime and its allies were saying that we are fighting terrorist people. I mean, we are not terrorists. We were innocent people, civilians, many children, many babies who died because lack of formula, for example. So it was important to show the world, to tell the truth through this documentary. And I was, my goal of filming this and showing the people is telling the truth and to try to bring help to the Syrian people. We
Yeah.
forced to leave after in 2018. We forced to leave the area, the eastern Ghouta, which was in the countryside of Damascus. But we left to northwest Syria. There's a big area also out of the Syrian regime control. But there's millions of people living there, millions of displaced people because they left their cities, their towns because of the Syrian regime. They fled them and they live in northwest now. So millions of people, many of them living in camps with very hard circumstances. I mean, in camps, it's very difficult life. You can imagine how it means. I mean, to live in a tent, especially in winter, for example. Many times we see the tents are burned because they use something for heating, something unhealthy. They sometimes it flies with the wind. Sometimes it's drawn by rain or snow. And you can imagine if I tell you there's like 100 family and they have one bathroom, so
Oh my goodness.
it's very hard. I mean, they need to stand in a queue to go to toilet. It's very hard life. They have nothing and no hope. So we try, always to speak up through this documentary and through my book now. I wanted this book to be a reminder of Syria, but many organizations are helping in Syria, but it's never enough because there are millions. They need everything. They have nothing. Many children. I mean, there's nearly 2 million child without schools, without education. They just can't go to school. So you can imagine the needs. It's very huge. And there's nothing changed in the situation in Syria. I mean, the president who committed all these crimes stay as a president. With his family, they control everything in Syria now. So nothing changed, and the humanitarian aids are not enough. So the situation is still very bad.
Oh, well, um, yes, you said you did the documentary and now you're booked and you're doing podcasts and yeah, um, you know, some people just need to hear the situation and their humanitarian consciousness will will come in and offer help. So, I'm sorry to hear that the documentary didn't really make a dent because there's so many people that are in need. So let's make an intention that, your work and the Syrian people, um, some governments or some rich person would send aid and help. I remember, I think Canada was accepting some Syrians as refugees. Was that true?
Yes, they accept some refugees. I mean, not only Canada, many countries also, especially in Europe. But like millions of people, where can they go?
Yeah, they're not going to take millions, right? At least, well, I mentioned that because some countries are opening their borders to help. All right. Well, listen, that's the purpose of this conversation is to, bring global awareness and some action, as you said in your bio, to this problem. But I want to, switch back now to you as a doctor and you being in the position that you are to help, the children as a pediatrician. Um, what is it like in Syria for a woman to become a doctor, for a woman to become a lawyer, for a woman to become educated? What did you have to overcome to become a pediatrician?
Well, it's not all of Syria. I mean, are the same situation. I mean, I'm from the countryside of Damascus, from conservative area. Like the community have, these traditions and customs, many, thoughts against women. I mean, to be a doctor, it's okay. To be a lawyer, it's okay. It's not very bad. But some people maybe can talk about women when they become something different. For example, I wanted to be an engineer, but no, people said, no, it's not for women. You can't be an engineer. I mean, when I started working at the hospital as pediatrician, it was okay for the people, and being nurse is okay, for example. But to manage the hospital, to be a manager, especially in a hospital that have men work there,
Right.
so they refused this. They said, no, it's not for women. You can't do that. And they always have this that women can't do that. They didn't try women. I mean, you don't give us the opportunity to try us. I mean, to know if we can or not. But they always say, no, women can't do that. And I was actually, I know my community. It wasn't like a surprise to hear this, but the surprise was when I heard some young people, educated people who say the same. I mean, I remember a friend of mine, he was working, he's a lab technician, was working with me before I became the manager. He's very young, he's educated, and he said, we have no problem with you. You are our friend, but we don't want a woman to be our manager. So that was, I just want to say, no, not you. You're so young to say this. But yeah, that was a surprise for me. And I heard this from many people after this. It wasn't, I mean, a shock to me, but I wanted to prove that I can do this and many women can do this. And I wanted to take this opportunity to change the situation of women, to change the thoughts about women and the customs, because I believe it's not true. And actually, it's not about religion as they claim, and many people they claim, no, it's the religion who prevent you to be. No, it's not the religion. I'm Muslim, I know, I mean. So yeah, they have only these thoughts. So I started working, being the manager of the hospital, try to do my best to make the hospital improved and be good, to prove for these people that I can do this, and not any women, but a lot of women, if you try, they can do this.
Of course they can. Well, listen, women has had to fight for every single morsel. And I'm positive that, in your country, then it's a little worse than in the West. But in the West, it's the same thing. You would think that they're more progressive and the younger people, but women are still being shut out of managerial roles and to be a CEO because you're right, the men don't want a woman being their boss. And I'm glad you said it's not religion. It's not religion. It's just macho, I guess, and something to do with the male dominance, I guess, whatever it is. But the good news is that you persevered because you said that you did become the manager and you managed the hospital for 2 years. And I'm sure that you did a far superior job than any man could have done, because one of the great things about women is they think that we're weak, but we're stronger. we can, we've got the mindset, we've got the strength, we've got intuition, and then we've got nurturing. I mean, who better to run a hospital than a woman that can offer all those things? The men could probably only offer maybe a plan or something. They're because they're in masculine energy. So that's amazing. Now, you also have a connection to Malala, and Malala had to fight for women's education. So it's probably in a different area than you were, because you mentioned in that, in your country, or at least in the part of the country that you were born, it was okay for a woman to be a doctor and a lawyer or whatever, but they say that the engineer, which is they consider a man's job, you couldn't have. But so what was it like, being interviewed by Malala, and why did she want to talk to you?
I wasn't actually interviewed by Malala. I am really respect and love Malala and her story and admire her. And I read her book, so it was, I mean, amazing. And I wish I can speak to her, but I didn't.
Okay, all right. So you weren't interviewed by her? I didn't get that.
No, unfortunately, no.
All right. Well, I saw that in your work. But all right. So let's talk now about understanding the plight of women and children in war zones. Right now, we've got several wars going on. We've got the Ukraine, we've got Israel and Gaza. Um, you mentioned about, a while ago that people were thinking that, all Muslims are terrorists, and but you wanted to show with your documentary that the women and children, and even men, civilian men, experience a lot of hardship during this time. So what did you want to share about critical issues that are happening to civilians right now in the war in Syria, Gaza, Ukraine, and Israel?
Exactly. It's heartbreaking to see this happening again. I wanted from telling our stories and our experience in Syria to raise awareness, to tell the people about the horror of wars and how the children and the innocent people pay the price for the war. They have nothing to do with this. They don't understand what's happening. You can just see them hungry, afraid, scared. So I wanted to raise awareness to so this cannot happen again. But to see this happening again, it's really break my heart. I mean, I can't watch videos and so see the news in Ukraine and especially when I saw the doctors in Gaza were working at the same circumstances that we were working. They have no enough resources, a lot of casualties, they can deal with everyone. I lived the same experience, and maybe my experience was easier than what happened in Gaza. So this is really heartbreaking, and I wish this stop, and I wish everyone understand that this war will bring nothing, will not solve any problem. I mean, they have to sit on the table and talk to find a solution, and they can do this without using these weapons, without killing many children. I was able to share my experience with health workers in Ukraine, and I'm happy that I was able, to tell them about our work and how to try, to protect themselves, their hospitals through my organization, Syrian American Medical Society. They were to make training for Ukrainian health workers to tell them about Syrian experience. So I was happy to tell this, but I wish this war stop. I mean, it's endless wars with no results. So I wish it stop and they understand that it's just, killing the innocent people.
Yeah, those powers that start the war don't care. I see what Putin is doing to Ukraine. They're bombing civilians. They're bombing hospitals. Yeah, I mean, they don't care. Yes. Anyway, yes, it's good to highlight that, but I think the news does do a good job of talking about when they bomb civilians. I've seen them bombing apartment buildings and hospitals, and yeah. So, and they're talking about charging these leaders that do that with war crimes, because it is war crimes. I mean, you're right. War serves no purpose, and it goes on forever because the other country is not just going to lay down their weapons. They're going to keep fighting, and it's going to go on and go on forever. You're talking about the Syrian war has been going on for 12 years. I think the war in the Middle East has been going on for decades too. It just kills people. Yeah, and yeah. So, all right. So, what did you your book is called The Cave: The Secret Underground Hospital and One Woman's Story of Survival in Syria. So tell us about your book. Are you talking about the experience, the same thing that you talked about in the documentary, or are you expanding on some issues?
Well, the documentary to me it was short and it didn't tell the whole story. I mean, there's a lot to talk about, and I thought a lot before telling this story through the book. It's very hard to write a book about this hard experience. I mean, try to remember everything again. Many things, I can never forget, but a lot of things to remember the details, the children, to describe them, the faces of the children, their cries, their wounded. And that was happening every day in Syria, and to remember every massacre. I mean, for example, chemical attack, warplanes attacks. Sometimes they targeted primary schools, sometimes hospitals. To remember this again and write this with details. To remember, for example, when they bombed my hospital, the cave, and they killed three of my colleagues. I was sitting with them. I mean, to tell this story again is very hard to me. I thought a lot, but then I said, I have to tell this story. It's my responsibility to tell the truth, to tell what's happening there and what's still happening, to remind of Syria and to tell the victims' stories, the children's stories. Many children died. They have their dreams. They were dreaming of better life and they deserve this better life, but they just died and no one know about them. I felt like it's my responsibility to tell their stories. And I started this book, from my childhood, to tell how was it before the Syrian revolution and before the war started. I talk about my family. I highlighted on the early marriage because my three oldest sisters get married very early and have children. So I wanted to tell these stories also because I believe it's important for everyone to know. And then I talked about the demonstrations in Syria, the protests, how people were really innocent and they just demand human rights. I mean, we have no human rights. I talked about the dictatorship in Syria, which lasted for more than 50 years. So that was very important to me, and I focused on this war zone time because this is the goal of writing this book, of telling this story. And I'm grateful for my co-author Rania Abu Zaid because she wrote this book in very, a great way. So yeah, that was the main goal of telling this story, and also to spot a light on the refugees suffering. I'm very lucky because I didn't leave Syria through the sea. I mean, many people go through the sea and they're drowning. Many people lost their children drowning in the sea in front of their eyes. Many people were starving, spent few days in a small boat, I mean, without food to arrive to the other side or to Europe, just trying to find better life, to be safe, to protect their children. So the refugees are really suffering, especially who live in camps in neighboring countries of Syria, like Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon. They're really suffering. And you can imagine why they have to take their children and to go through the sea by small boat. I mean, if it was really hard to live in the camps or somewhere in Syria. So yeah, that was the situation of the refugees. And I myself was a little nun, and I suffer and I have challenges and problems to start a new life. It takes with me 4 years to start my new life now in the US. So it's not easy and I'm lucky, as I told you, so it's not easy for everyone. I wanted to tell all these stories. So not only just to tell the story and to tell the suffering of the people, I wish the people who read this book try to help, try to do something. I mean, if you believe that you can help, so you can help, you can do something, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, human suffering. Wow. Sometimes we're just lucky where we were born. Yeah, the people in North America that have all these luxuries and they still complain. And you were talking about, yeah, you're leaving a place where, trying to stay alive and then have to watch your children drown in the sea. Wow, that is absolutely heartbreaking. But I still don't understand how can the general population help? Are you aiming this conversation at governments, or are you aiming this conversation with somebody like me or anybody that's listening? What would you like us to do?
Yeah, I mean, everyone can help. Speak up for Syria. Make a pressure on the politicians so we can change this criminal president in Syria and his families. You can donate for Syria. There's many organizations are supporting like education, health, and many fields in Syria. So people can donate for Syria. People can talk to the parliament members. I mean, everything can help. Just if you speak, if you can do nothing, just to speak about Syria, tell everyone about people suffering. I believe it's a responsibility for a human being to help each other. It's not something that you want to like you want to do or not. It's not volunteering job. No, you have to do this. Maybe sometimes we are safe now. Our kids are around us. They are safe. They are warm, but our other people are not. So maybe we sometimes you or everyone suffer from something, have like maybe natural disaster or something. So you need help. You can feel how frustrating it is if you see other people don't care. We have to care about each other.
Yeah, that's important. Now, I want to circle back to the Muslim connection. You said that you're in the United States, and there after 9/11, there was this pushback against Muslims. What is, I mean, because I don't know, so I have to ask you, what is the immigration policy now as far as helping Muslim refugees, even, not necessarily just from Syria, but how is that happening?
Well, when Trump was the president, we were banned of coming to the U.S. And I was, I wanted to come here before this. I arrived here in December 2021, but before this, I couldn't come. It was a little hard to get visa, but I got visa because the documentary was nominated for the Oscar. So it's something
Ah,
important.
well,
That's
that helped. I mean, that's one thing.
course, no, no, it
Yes.
helped. I mean, it helped. It tells a lot of people the story. Yeah,
Mm.
and I came here, but I couldn't come with my husband. They said you can come alone only because they don't want us to stay here. So I came alone in 2020, and then I went back to Europe. But after this, I mean, after Trump went, Muslim are able now to come. But I mean, in general, the US didn't receive a lot of refugees, not only Muslims and a lot of Syrians. I mean, they don't receive a lot of refugees like Europe. There's like in Germany, nearly 1 million, maybe 800,000 people, Syrian people went to Germany. In France, also a lot of people. So the US didn't receive a lot of refugees, and we were hoping that they can receive more. I mean, we don't want to leave our country. This is not our goal, but that was the situation, and it lasted for more than like 12 years, 13 years, maybe now. So it's very hard to live there. It's unsafe. It's unsafe. This is what people look for, for their safety, for them and their children. That's why, I mean, we couldn't get rid of this president and the leaders of the war in Syria. So we had to leave. And I really wanted to stay. I didn't want to leave my country, but I mean, I forced to leave. So yeah, we were wishing that the US receive more and other countries who can help and have, the power and the resources to help more refugees.
Yeah, yes. Like I said, I was aware that the United States wasn't helping a lot, which is why I mentioned Canada, because I remember when Canada opened its doors and the United States didn't, because again, the 9/11 left a bad taste in their mouth, I guess. But I'm glad that the door is starting to open, and the Muslim ban is no longer in place, and maybe the outcome from your book, because you have to set an intention. The outcome from your book would be, since you're highlighting the plight of the Syrian refugees and the Syrian plights and being unsafe, and you know having people see their children drown when they're trying to leave. We are all humans, and maybe someone that can make a difference will make a difference, and any small thing definitely helps. But like you said, it's Ukraine and what's going on in Gaza, and I'm sure there's more wars. Those are the only ones that we're talking about here. But yes, human suffering is going on in a lot of countries. So So if I were to ask you, what do you want people to walk away with after reading your book? Would it be to help? Would that be the one word answer, or there's more?
It's important to me and to us as Syrians to tell the truth. I mean, this is very important because you can hear lies all the time. So they try to change the history in the Syrian regime, and it's a lie. So we have to write the history and to tell our stories, which is our reality, which is the circumstances that we lived in. So this is very important. Know the truth from this book and from other stories, which was again coming from Syria. And I wish people to help also. And as I said, they can help. I mean, try to do what you can, and this is enough. When everyone do their parts, so we all can do a lot. We can change the situation.
All right, so that's awesome. So I'm going to leave a task for you. At the end of this interview, if you can email me some links to, organizations that are accepting donations. So because, the layman person can only really give money, we have no, yeah, we can write letters to Congress or whatever, but that's not going to work as fast as money, right? Aid. So yeah, send me some links to some organizations and I will post it on the show page so people can help with money. So as we wrap up, how can the audience learn more to support your cause? Like, you're going to send me links to for them to offer, financial support. But do you have a website, for instance, that is accepting help, or yeah, tell our listeners how they can support your cause, get a copy of your book, and if you're on social.
Well, I joined now the Syrian American Medical Society because I believe that it's a good way to help people. I like their jobs. They were supporting the Cave Hospital, and they're supporting now in Syria, other countries, also in Ukraine, in Gaza. So this is the way that I find is good for me now while I'm in the US to help. So if you read this book, the whole story, try to follow these organizations. Like this organization, actually it's really hard to tell you. There's a lot of organizations who support in Syria. That's why I wanted to write their websites in at the back of my book, but it was really hard to write all of them. So I prefer if people make their research, try to know more. If you want to support education for children, you want to support hospitals, you want to support refugees in Greece, for example, in Ukraine. So there's many ways. Follow this organization on your social media and you'll find a lot about Syria. There's a lot, and also a lot of stories you can hear from other people, other journalists, writers.
Okay, all right. So they just search about, so I'll put some links in the show page myself. I'll do some research, and of course I'll link out to your book. Do you have a website?
Me, no, I don't have website, but there's for my organization.
Okay, all right. And what about social media?
Yeah, I have my social media.
Under your name, or what's the handle?
It's under my name. It's Amani Ballour, yeah, on
Okay,
Facebook,
all right.
X, and Instagram.
Okay, all right. So, all right. So that's what I will do. I will do my part. I will definitely, put all this information on the show page. So somebody that, that is listening can go on, and I will also definitely um, uh, give some financial assistance myself to definitely the refugees. That would be because, the story that you've just told me just breaks my heart. And, a lot of times we live in our comfortable little worlds, and, these things are out there and you don't really bring them in here. But when I'm sitting here talking to you, I've brought it in here, and I'm hoping that the listeners would bring it in here in their hearts and offer help, So that's great. So this was, thank you for being on the show, Dr. Amani, and sharing this heartfelt story. Thank you for writing your book. And I'm glad that you said that you didn't start it at the war. You started at families and understand, let them listening, the readers understand what it's like to live in, your country and the family dynamics and getting married early and things like that. All the things that plagues women in general, right? So I'm so glad that that I was able to speak to you and bring some awareness to this topic. So as we wrap up, any last words?
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity to let me reach to the people and tell them my story. Thank you. It's a pleasure talking with you.
Well, you're very welcome, and it's my pleasure to do my part. As soon as I saw your topic, I said immediately that I wanted to be involved to help you share this story, and as you said, share the truth so that people can have a personal view of what's happening to women, children, civilians, people that didn't cause the war, but they call it collateral damage. And maybe the World Organization can do some laws that prevent these things from happening, because I don't know if there is right now, but they definitely need to be highlighted and showcased. So thank you, Dr. Amani, for being on the show. Thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode of Transforming Your Mind to Transform Your Life. This was a transformative conversation with Dr. Balor. So run out and support her and support her cause by definitely picking up a copy of her book and hearing the truth about her story and the story of the Syrian people. Contribute by either a financial donation, or if you're in the political space, start the conversation about helping more of these refugees come to the United States. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Dr. Balor. And until next time, namaste.
Thank you.
You're welcome.